We are live. Welcome to Strange Journeys. Tonight we hop aboard the ambulance, the meat wagon,
The
the
Bambulance.
wambulance, the ambulamp,
The Boo
the
Boo Bus.
band-aid wagon, or as we've learned from Beth here recently. Oh, Dagny joined us
Guys.
finally.
Hey.
But as we've learned from she's going as Heidi tonight. Um, this special vehicle goes by many different names, and but as we've learned from Beth here recently, the Boo Boo Bus.
Yep.
Which is an ironic and sarcastic yet totally appropriate title, as we'll learn tonight as we encounter the high strangeness that has been experienced by these EMTs and paramedics and first responders. So join us on our strange journeys. Into the unknown, into the unseen, the unexplainable, and the unbelievable. Join our strange journeys. Are you ready? Yes, are you ready?
Ready.
Hi, guys. I'm Tom, your ghost host, and this is Strange Journeys. We're doing an encounters session, a high strangeness on the Boo Boo Bus. And we've got Beth back with us for the first time in years. We've got, well, it was sometime last year. So
Yeah.
we've got Dagny, and she's back, and Lewis Powell the fourth. I was thinking Selena and Tim might be able to join us tonight. I thought they'd said they would, but hopefully they'll show up later. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. Watchers, thank you for watching. We're going to get into the show here in just a minute, but I want you to remember first and foremost that we provide these shows for you, the watchers, for your entertainment. We are not by any means and do not claim to be. Okay, I'll just stop right there. I say this thing every show, but then we have somebody on usually that is an expert in the field. So tonight that expert is Beth and Dagny, because they've actually Beth is working in the field now. Dagny has worked in the field. So other than that, we're not experts or scholars in any of the topics that we choose to cover. We're simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And please remember that this show is live and it's not rehearsed or edited out later. What you see is what you get. And so we're going to have a good time tonight. We've got a bunch of stories for y'all. Hopefully, it won't go too late. But
No
these
promises.
these things tend to drag on sometimes. We get to talking and having a good time. How many of you watched last show? We called it Encounters Paranormal West Virginia.
I did get around to it. It was awesome.
Yes, it was. Lewis
I
interviewed. Huh?
Well, I am still thinking about that experience Teresa
Yeah.
had with the Avonic, and I that just totally blew me away.
Remind me of that story. I was at my mom's trying to watch it, so I was in and out.
Well, she was investigating an antique store, and the owner of the store was of Slavic heritage. And the Slavs have this mythological creature that is supposed to guard the family's barns and granaries, and it's called an Avonic. And the antique shop owner reveals to the team that's investigating his shop that he has an Avonic. And so most of the people in that group actually saw this creature.
Wow.
And then Teresa was taken into the office, and the owner pointed to a Rubbermaid container sitting in the corner and said, "It's in there." And she goes over and she leans forward, and
I
this thing
remember
pops
that.
its head out
Yes.
of the top. And
that
she
was
said it
creepy.
looked like a kitten. It looked like the
Wow.
head of a kitten. And then all of a sudden, the owner reaches over to grab the Rubbermaid container. And as soon as his hands touch the sides, all of a sudden, this thing just vanished.
Just on demand.
And yeah,
I
I mean
remember that.
that.
Okay, yeah, it was like a storage bin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, she saw it. It's like it pushed its head, pushed the top of it up, and looked out at
Mhm.
her.
I've
Yeah.
never heard that term before, though. Before that,
Well,
Abonent?
I've Avonic. I've
Abonent.
gone around and discovered that, yes, it has been written about in quite a number of sources. But just the fact that she saw this thing,
Yeah.
and it appeared to be a solid creature, and then all of a sudden
Wow.
it just vanishes.
He's gone.
Hmm.
That was awesome. And this, she just had story after story.
Hmm.
That was an awesome show, and it was almost like uh, what was it? Who am I thinking? I'm Chip and Dale, where they keep complimenting each other. It was almost like you and her were like fangirl and fanboy
Yes.
on each other.
That was pretty awesome. That, like, the way you looked up to her so much, and then she's like, what? But I'm looking up to you.
Yeah.
But that was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was an awesome show. So, watchers, if you haven't seen that, we called it Paranormal West Virginia, Teresa's Haunted Tales, something like that. If I remember, that's bad that I don't even remember the names of my own shows. But I wasn't able to be on it, and that's fine. It was a great show. I was kind of. I told Tim afterwards. I said I felt like that kid in the classroom that was raising his hand all the time, interrupting the teacher because I was sitting there commenting. I was watching. I was watching on YouTube on my mom's TV, and I'm sitting there commenting on the phone. Sending Tim private messages. Ask her this. Ask her this. Ask her this. And I'm like, doggone it, I wish I could have been on the show, but anyway, we it was a fun show, and the thing about well, I noticed right off the bat, her and Selena actually looked kind of like each other, like they could have been sisters. Wasn't that
yeah.
wild?
Yes.
They both got that kind of golf look, not really golf, but I mean the dark hair and
they
the
both do
sallow
have. They
skin.
both have that very like spiritual kind of feel to them when you look at them.
Well, I picked up and that they I believe this is just me, and I could be wrong because I'm no expert, but I felt like they were both empaths, and that could be.
I feel it.
I asked Selena about it afterwards, and she agreed with me.
That's kind of what I meant by that
Yeah.
spiritual aura.
Yep, and it was there, and it was obvious, and even though their accents are different, that West Virginia accent is kind of strange.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, but I mean, because we do strange, okay? We dig strange. That's why we're called Strange Journeys, and you know, it was a fun show. You need to go watch it, and so it's always fun.
Are you guys getting bad weather tonight too?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
It's gonna hit me first.
Yeah. Let us know how it is.
Yeah, it'll hit Beth, then me, then Dagny, and then Lewis. That's it. That's west to east.
We'll keep you updated.
All right. Remember, you can support the show through Patreon, PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. You got the banner scrolling below. If you want to make a monthly commitment, which that helps, I'm still paying for this, and we've got just enough that it's almost covering what I put out every month, but I mean, we could still use some help. That's a monthly commitment on Patreon, but if you don't feel like you want to make a commitment, that's cool. Everybody's different. We've got the PayPal, we've got the Venmo, and we got the Cash App. If you feel like, hey, I dig this show, I dig what they're saying, and just want to tip us, there you go. We got options. We got options for you. Okay. And if you are watching on YouTube, remember this.
Click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to. I got to get that updated. He was like 4, and now he's 6.
I'll make you a new one.
He's damn near grown, you know, and and so, I mean, he said something about it the other day. He was over here Saturday and Sunday. I stayed with my mom half the weekend, and then the other half I was at home. And he said something about subscribing to the video, and I'm like, God, I gotta get a new video. But Dagny, if you want to do one, please do so.
I got some glowing shoes.
That was supposed to be your job from the beginning.
Well, I'll work on it then. It's been a while.
I mean, from the very beginning.
Pressure.
Yeah, from the very beginning. From the very beginning, that was going to be your job to remind us throughout the show, like and subscribe.
You're the subscription girl.
Whenever people,
there you go.
You know, I am disabled. You know, I am an artist.
Oh.
I'm an artist. Disabled. Sorry.
They used to call that touched.
No.
Where I was raised, you were touched.
Oh, boy.
Bless their heart, they're just touched.
Bless their pea-picking heart.
That's right. All right, and remember, you can also go to our Strange Stuff. It's www.strangestuff.live. Get all kind of Strange Journeys stuff. You can get your Watchers T-shirt. There's
I'm looking
for
the
Dagny. Huh?
I'm looking at backpacks now.
Oh, okay. I don't have a picture of that, but you get your coffee mug. You remember the Stick Man?
Awesome.
You know, I wish we could get permission to share these pictures. Remember the pictures that Tim, the production crew got?
You know what?
These two are my favorite here.
Those would make some really cool puzzles.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
It'd be
I mean,
so
but
complicated.
that one. But remember, he was doing the Halloween show, and the production company went downtown just to shoot some B-roll, and that's what they got. You know,
it can't be coincidence, can it?
No. No. And of course, like I said, we've got the Now I think we've got a Stickman T-shirt, but we got the T-shirt, the Stickman bag, and the Strange Journey shirts. You get all kind of stuff on there. I haven't updated it in a while, but as we start, I've had this little saying here on in our banner stuff for months, probably a year, but I've never used it. But tonight seems to be appropriate. Um, let's read this. Do you have a magic spell to return someone to life? She said. No, the witch said. I'm sorry. Oh, why don't you tell me about them? Will that bring them back? For us, for a little while, stories are a different kind of magic.
Oh, that's cute.
Isn't that cool?
Mhm.
We can bring back the dead. Now tonight we're focusing on events of high strangeness and paranormal activities that has been experienced by EMTs, paramedics, and first responders. We've scoured the internet for personal stories of these experiencers, but we also have the unique and amazing honor of having two that are members of our ETs. Beth is currently an EMT in South Mississippi, and Dagny was what, about 15 years in the Chicago area?
About 9 years
Okay.
as an EMT, and then I did autopsies after that. So
Oh
it
boy.
was
Oh,
there was a lot.
You really stepped off into it then.
I don't know where all my strangeness comes from.
All right. Well, now they've each got stories to tell, and we've got other stories that we found, and so we're gonna hop around. We're not just gonna. Beth is not going to tell all her stories, and then Dagny tell all her stories. We're all going to take turns. But first, I want to hear from both of you. What and how did you, I mean, what made you and how did you get into this line of work? What attracted you to such an intense profession? Beth?
Well, I was majoring in marine biology at University of South Alabama.
That's a big leap.
I know. Well, my thinking was I wanted to go out on the ships and or boats and actually get out in the field to study. I never quite figured out sharks, whales, dolphins. I don't know.
You just want to
But
play in the water.
yes, with the critters in the water.
Alligators.
But yeah, I thought if I became a paramedic, I could not only work my way through college, I could hopefully do double duty as one of the scientists and a safety person. So probably if I stuck with it, you might be watching me on Shark Week. Every Shark Week, I just, I should have gone there. Why didn't I stay with that? But I changed my major because everybody kept telling me, you're not going to make any money. There's no jobs. Of course, now there's jobs all over the place. Or at least it seems like, but I changed my major to geography and never could find a job that could have paid my bills. So I stuck with being a paramedic, and now I'm an instructor training the next generation.
Cool.
As well as still working on the Boo Boo bus. So.
Well, like I got a degree in psychology. Like,
and here we are.
That major.
Here we are.
Yeah.
All right, Dagny, how'd you end up in it?
Well, I had always wanted to be a doctor, and then I met someone in my early teens that I looked up to very much. Basically, I've always been like really interested in medicine, and he was a cop, but he was also a paramedic in Chicago in the past before I knew him. And he would tell me stories about it, and I got to hear all the stories. He would show me all the like tools and how they worked and how to bandage. And I was like, maybe I don't want to be a doctor. Maybe I want to be this. I like this. And I've always liked thrill seeking in general. So that wasn't hard to talk me into, that part of it.
Yeah.
But my friend Dave, that was the cop in Washington State. I was only 12 when I met him, or I was 11 when I met him, and he was actually the father of my close friend. And I would spend the night at her house just so I could hang out with her dad when he got home from work and talk to him and get like stories and all that.
Yeah.
And actually, something very paranormal happened the day that he died. I was in my bunk bed. My mom was at work. She was working overnights in the at the paper, and out of my dream, I don't remember what the dream was. Out of nowhere, I jumped straight up out of my sleep on the bottom bunk and slammed my head into the top bunk, and it was apparent to me because it was still dark and then it was daylight that I had knocked myself out. I hit it so hard.
Wow.
But what woke me up and made me jump up like that was the feeling that returned as soon as I woke up again. I was like, oh my God, Dave just died. I felt my friend die. I felt him die. I knew he died. And I was like, oh my God. So I jump up and I run to the phone and call my mom at work because she should be home soon, but she wasn't there yet. So I called her, said, Mom, you need to call him. You need to call him. You need to check on Dave. Dave just died. And she's like, whoa, hold on. Okay. And she hung up the phone and she didn't really hesitate all that much because, she gets these senses too. So she kind of understood by my urgency that I had felt this and she should listen. Well, she called me right back. She said he didn't answer and I was just crying so hard I couldn't breathe. And she's like, I'm going to go check on him. And only a few minutes later, she found his body in his house.
Wow.
And I decided soon after that, because I looked up to him so much, I had never had a role model at all in my life. And this guy meant so much to me because finally I had someone to look up to. And so he was a paramedic in Chicago for 20 years. And those were the stories he would tell me. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to go be a paramedic in Chicago and just show him I can do it too,
That's cool.
That's how that ended up.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's profound that, you had connected with him so strongly that when he did pass, it's like you felt the connection break.
And judging by the time period and what they said about his body and so, I'm pretty sure that the time I jumped straight up out of sleep was when he died.
Wow.
It was just too dead on.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to stop and think about that for a second, and then I'm like, "Oh no, she didn't."
Oh, I did. See, that's something
She
that
went there.
comes along with EMS and seeing crazy stuff all the time. You joke about some pretty dark subjects sometimes, and not everyone appreciates that.
They call it gallows humor.
I
had that before I got into EMS.
I think I did too, but it really accentuated it.
Oh yeah.
And I had a partner punch me full force. This is a man, a full-size man, in the face one time because of something I said on a call. I totally deserved it. But I was joking about something on the scene, and he did not find that funny. And so I never even told my boss about it. That was my fault. Sorry.
All right. All right. Well, they've both got stories, but I wanted to start with this one right here. Or if you've got, if these guys, if you have the outline, it all got convoluted, but I'm going to start with story number one, and then we're going to go to best story, and then they've each got a couple of stories, so we've tried to break them up so that we can go back and forth. But here's one I found. He says, I'm assuming it's a he. He says, I worked as an EMT for one of the busiest cities when it comes to 911. It was a beautiful summer day and everyone was at the beach enjoying the sun. Tones dropped and we get our rig to our rig to see that we are responding to a potential infant drowning.
Mm.
We get to the scene and find PD, I'm assuming that's the police,
Mm.
performing CPR. We take over and start doing everything we can. I get this weird feeling and I look up mid compression and I see the little girl I'm performing CPR on standing 3 feet away from me. She doesn't say anything, but I get a feeling, a calmness, one that tells me everything is going to be okay. We get pulses back for a minute and then lose them. By that time, the fire engine shows up and we load and go. Fire driving the rig, my partner, a fire medic, and I in the back doing all we can to save this baby girl. We get to Children's Hospital, and all three of us are too invested at this point, and we just offload and go. So we stayed and fought the battle with the ER team. It was the moment I chose to leave EMS. We lost her. My heart sank. How could I get a fleeting feeling of hope, then lose her? I took it personally to deliver the news to her parents. I broke down and cried with them, holding them, telling them I'm sorry. I get back to the rig after what seems like an eternity, and in the back, in the airway seat, does that make sense
Yeah.
to y'all?
Yeah.
He
It's a
says,
captain's chair in the back of the truck.
okay.
We always
said-
call it jump seat.
Yeah.
He said, I see the little girl sitting in that seat, just sitting and smiling. I don't know. I got that calmness all over again, like she was telling me it's okay. Fast forward about a year, I'll admit that I have had some paranormal activity happen around me in my personal life. But this whole past year, when I'm stressed or need calmness, she comes and she calms me. I still deal with the fact that I couldn't save her. She was my hardest no save, but I think I gained a guardian angel in her, no matter how crazy that sounds. Hey, that'll put chills on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, doing everything he can to save the little girl, and she's standing over there. It's okay. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've felt that feeling for specifically that calmness that comes
Wow.
with a person when they die. There is a many times you feel that calmness.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, Beth, tell us one of your stories.
All right. Our ambulance station in Wade, Mississippi. A lot of my coworkers have had some experiences there. We're in a trailer next to the original school building for the East Central School District. And later on, it was a community center. And then after they built the new one, the new community center, it's abandoned and just falling apart. It's really sad to watch it fall apart. But we had another old school on the other side of our station. It was torn down, and a Red Cross station was put there that held all of their stuff for the hurricane shelters. So I haven't seen anything there, but there have been some times where I haven't wanted to go outside. Something just tells me stay inside.
Mm.
And if I need to restock equipment or supplies that I used after a call, I'll wait until the morning or the next time I just have to go and either respond to another call or go to post.
Wow.
But a lot of my coworkers have talked about hearing footsteps in the station, and I think I finally debunked that. It's I finally heard them too, but I realized it was the HVAC system. Whenever
Up and
when
on.
the heat is on, after it finishes, because the ductwork is one long thing in under a trailer, and I heard it too and realized it was the ductwork cooling after the heat went off. But I still have
Oh.
some coworkers who swear that they heard stuff even when the
Right.
heat was not on. So, and seen things. So,
Well, you bring up something that I haven't said anything to anybody lately, but the thing of the footsteps, and this has been going through my brain, and y'all know how my brain works on these things sometimes. But I mean, I've heard them. Okay, my personal remember our personnel paranormal story, the first show that we ever did, and I shared about the barn and hearing the footsteps and seeing the full bodied apparition. Um, and it got me to thinking when I first heard them, I heard the footsteps inside the old barn. Well, there's a wooden floor. It makes sense.
hmm
Well, the second time I heard them, just a few moments later, was outside where there's nothing but grass and dirt. What's up with that? You
That's
know,
not
yeah.
the HVAC.
no.
The steps
No,
are not
that's not
the
good.
HVAC.
but, but my point is, why are we hearing footsteps? Somebody running up and down steps, that makes footsteps. You can hear it.
hmm
Somebody with hard soled shoes walking across a wooden or concrete or hard floor, you hear footsteps.
hmm
If they're walking barefooted, no footsteps. If they're wearing sneakers, no footsteps. You can't hear these things.
hmm
And so it just got me to thinking, why do we hear this stuff? Why do we hear footsteps?
I
Is
have
it
Yeah.
what's
I
that?
have heard a theory before that ghosts are actually, or can be actually, just like a memory that got
Hmm.
stuck somewhere of something that has happened many times, and
Right.
it's just kind of, so maybe, you know when we hear the footsteps, it's just a memory of a ghost walking that certain distance, doing that over and over, or I don't.
Well, true, but why is it so um what's the word I'm looking for? In just about every haunted house,
Prominent. Yeah.
why is it so out there? Prominent, that's a good word. Why is it? Because I just don't get it. Again, this is my brain going that don't make sense to me anymore. You know, like I said, I've heard the footsteps, but it
Mhm.
just doesn't make sense to me anymore. You know, if it's why not every house that we go into has stairs and wooden floors or whatever. Um, and the odds of people stomping around on the floors, it don't make sense to me anymore. So that's the skepticism coming out. But it's valid. I don't want to
hmm
sound like I'm putting it down. If somebody heard it, it's valid. So what is it? You know?
I I think one of the things may be simply that we are so accustomed to hearing footsteps associated with someone being around us. I mean,
Yeah.
the building where I work has carpeted floors, and yet we still hear when someone walks across those floors,
Yeah.
even just
hmm
normal walking, we hear that somebody is coming. And I can think of one of the places on my tour where people hear a little girl running around inside this building, and they can actually tell she is barefoot because you hear that slap of
That
her bare
pad.
feet on the
That makes
hardwood
sense.
floors. And so I think part of it is we are so accustomed to hearing that in association with living human beings being around, that is what makes it strange and unusual when there's nobody around, yet we're
Yeah.
hearing the floor creak or we are hearing those footsteps.
I've
Right.
heard them in my house, and it's a new
Yeah.
trailer. There was nothing here before, and
And
it scared me because I thought I was going to look up and see a guy standing in my doorway.
well, like I said, it's valid. I'm not taking away the validity of anybody's experience. I don't want it to sound that way.
Yeah.
But well, like I was telling about on the I was taking my tour one night, and it was a kind of a private tour with this couple that had just gotten engaged or just got married or something, like I don't remember, but it was like just me and them, just three of us, and we go up to this beautiful antebellum home. It was in a state of disrepair at the time. It's been since been totally and fully and completely remodeled. But anyway, we can look in the door, and through the foyerway, you see a stair kind of curving up to the second floor. And I'm telling them about the house and everything, and letting them, because you could get up on those steps, and I'd let them peek in the door and see the steps and everything, and then show them pictures of what it's supposed to look like, and yada yada yada. Well, anyway, while they're looking in there, I'm kind of trying to point out some stuff, and I got my phone in my left hand, and I have one of those Spirit Vox apps, and it came on by itself. I
Hmm.
didn't. I mean, it was, you have to push a button to start it, and so anyway, it came on by itself, and all three of us got startled, and we looked at my phone, and what we heard on my phone was like somebody running up some steps. That plop 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 is there, and they're looking at steps inside the house.
Uh-huh.
So I know, I know it happens, but it's like it happens so often. You kind of wonder, could it be something else other than footsteps? Is my question. That's all.
Uh-huh.
And I went us off on a little rabbit trail, so I'm gonna pull it back with Dagny. Share your story, and then Lewis is gonna read us story number 2, I believe it is. Yes.
Right. Well, we had arrived at a hospital to transport a patient home to die. She was an elderly woman. We gathered her information and the records, and we went to her room. Um, we were about to transfer her to the gurney when she looked up above the door across from her bed. She was like looking at the ceiling area, but at the wall, kind of.
Wow.
And she just started talking, like clearly talking to someone, and she was smiling, and she was looking just right past all of us and just looking right in there, that little area, like she was looking directly at someone. And, we knew what we were there for. We were transporting her to take her to her house because she was going to die. So, we're not going to call a code or anything, but as she was doing that, I was feeling so warm, like there was sunshine in the room. And she was like thanking the thing for coming to get her, and it was absolutely obvious she was having a conversation with what she believed was a angel.
Wow.
Just the types of things she was saying and doing, and um but then she sat forward as if she was like leaning towards it, and her body just collapsed onto the bed. She died.
Wow.
And suddenly the whole room was back to just normal. It wasn't warm anymore. It wasn't comforting anymore. It was just absent feeling, completely absent feeling instantly. Like we were just looking at this capsule that used to be a person.
Uh-huh.
And that feeling
Holy
was
cow.
completely gone. And the rest of the night, the rest of our shift, both me and my partner mentioned many times how calm we felt all the shift. Just this, like we had just soaked up some of that sunshine, and it came with us. Like
Oh
we were
wow.
calm and relaxed, and it wasn't until later that I mentioned the temperature of the room to my partner, because I was like, nah, but then he brought it up. He's like, wasn't it like really warm in there? Because hospital rooms are pretty cold and dingy, and I mean it didn't even have a window. I mean, it
Oh
was
wow.
it was not normal that we were feeling this
Mm.
radiating warmth on us. But yeah, my partner felt it too. We both also just we felt this instant calm all for the rest of our shift. It was weird.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, you witnessed. That's like my mom scared me a couple of weeks ago. I went in to check on her after she'd gone to bed, she was supposed to be going to bed, and I knew she was still awake. I stepped in there to check on her, and she said, "Do you know all these people?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What people, Mama?"
That'll make you nervous.
Yeah, because I was like, "Oh no, here we go," and then it was like she came to, and she's like, "Oh no, I just thought there was somebody in the room." And I said, "Well, who do you think it was?" And she said, "Your dad's cousin." So, but that's been several weeks now, so nothing's happened. So it was not like in your situation where she was speaking to whomever was meeting her on the other side. Sounds like.
I think I've experienced that with many people in like nursing homes and such,
Yeah.
where they're talking about people that are in the room with them and their relatives or people that they knew, or
Mhm.
Who have
and
died.
some of them will openly just say that they're talking to people that they're gonna go see in heaven, and they're
Right.
clear about it, and they're completely like, yeah,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like,
I mean,
you
some
got
of
a
these
problem
people,
with it?
yeah,
It's
some of these
who I'm
people,
talking to.
I mean, they'll live for another few years and still be communicating before it's their time.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that's what's going on with my mom. I don't know. We're we're hoping that she stays with us for several more years. She is 83 or 85. I can't ever remember, but she's in her mid 80s. And I'm not concerned with the specific number right now.
Yeah.
So, but, and that's, I have, and I don't, Lewis, I don't know if you have, I'm sure Beth has, but I've never uh, been in the same room with someone as they pass. I'm sure that's got to be surreal, you
Yeah,
know.
it can be.
It's interesting. It changes you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I'm
I've
sure.
had it, I've had it
I'm
happen
sure.
many, many, many times.
Yeah,
Wow.
me too.
Like I
It,
said,
it,
I'm sure both of you, having done this before, you've experienced that many times. I haven't. Lewis, have you?
I actually haven't.
Oh,
I've been with family members on the verge of death, but at the moment of their death, I was well
yeah.
away from the scene.
Yeah, I've always arrived too late uh,
Mhm.
with my dad and then my son. I get there after the fact. All right, Lewis. Story number 2.
Okay. Let me. Reddit story number 2.
No, just story 2.
Okay. Let's see if I can find that.
Is
Oh.
yeah.
I was working for an ambulance service, and from day one, I would say weird things happened in the hospital and in our building. Things like waking up to doors slamming, or one time waking up after I heard someone say, "Wake up," like 2 inches from my face, and getting a call a minute later. It was more of a feeling of breath hitting my face an instant before the words that
Ooh, yeah,
freaked me out.
yeah.
Certain parts of the building had a weird feeling, like being watched. Occasionally, things would move out of the corner of your eye, stuff like that. I knew weird stuff happens around sleep and around lack of sleep for that matter. So,
Mm-hmm.
those aren't really paranormal experiences for sure, but who knows? This story is different though, because it wasn't just me. A few winters ago, I was working and it was snowing. Me and the other medic had gone over to the ER to help with the trauma. And when we got back, we were both in the kitchen area, sitting and talking, just letting the adrenaline wear off. Our part of the building was the third floor of a long rectangular building with one long hallway down the middle and stairwells at both ends. So as we were sitting there, we both hear boot steps walking up one of the sets of stairs, getting louder as it gets to our floor, and then the door at the end of the hall opening and closing. We
Now let
weren't
me stop you
sure
right
who it.
there. I'm
All right.
sorry. That makes sense to me
Okay.
because the hospital steps and anybody going up through hospital steps, those things reverberate. That makes sense to me. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We weren't sure who it was, but other people had keys to the building, so it wasn't that strange at first. Although it was weird that anyone would be coming up at around 3 in the morning. Our building is separate from the main hospital, and it is a small facility, so not a lot of people around at night anyway. We kept talking, expecting to see someone walk by the room or have someone say something. Nothing. After a minute or two, I poked my head out and looked down the hall. No one was there. We didn't
Wow.
hear any other footsteps once the door had opened and closed. After a minute or so, we went down the stairs and looked out in the parking lot and out the door. No tire tracks and no shoe prints. As I said, it was snowing. We went to the other door and none were there either.
Wow.
Definitely creeped us both out. The building was old and had a lot of different things serving mostly hospital functions. As far as I know, though, no patient rooms were ever there. Certainly, people die in the ambulances. Well, actually, nobody dies in an ambulance
No.
and in the hospital, but I don't know of any other deaths in the building. I mentioned it to some of my coworkers the next day, and they said that they heard doors slamming, and one medic who used to be there swore a locked door on the sleeping floor flew open in the middle of the night
Wow.
when he was there alone.
Ooh.
As far as anything with patients goes, I don't think I ever saw anything paranormal. Death is a process and weird things can definitely happen during it. So it can be hard to draw the exact line between normal and paranormal, I suppose.
Mhm. Yep.
Wow. Well, that going back to the steps, that is like what Dagny was saying. I think that was more like the residual thing, something that had happened before. Whether it's actual ghost or we talked about on a previous show, was it like a vortex, a time vortex where you just there's a thin place and you can hear into the past, you know?
Mhm.
Had they been in the stairwell, could they have seen something? Because see, sometimes I think that's what a residual is just a thin place, a vortex where the time, the different times intermingle slightly. They may see something of our time, whatever. I don't know, but
That's a really interesting theory.
uh, yeah, strange, strange. I mean,
It's
because
a strange journey.
there you go.
Definitely.
But I mean, that's what I think residuals could be. Of course, none of us have a frigging clue, and I almost said something
Yep.
else, but we don't have a clue. We really don't. It's all supposition and theoretical suppositions. But he said something. I saw you both kind of nodding there. Actually, no one dies in an ambulance. So
Nope.
what's the story there? You can't officially pronounce until they're in a hospital. Is that what it is?
Some place no medics usually can pronounce somebody dead, but
Yeah.
if we transport them to the hospital, they don't get pronounced until we get to the hospital and the doctor says, "Okay, yeah, stop."
Okay.
So nobody dies in the back of the ambulance. We're still working them until we get them to the
I
hospital.
got you. Yes. Okay. I understand.
They're
So
they're either
it's
they're either dead on the scene before we got there, or once they get to the hospital.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yep.
I mean, it's not just
Technically.
yeah. I mean, it's not just a semantics thing. You actually
Well, it
in
sort of is
the
a semantics.
well, yeah, but I mean, there is some logistics behind it where you are actually working on them until you get them to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So that means technically they're not dead. They may be already left their body, but okay, I get it.
Their body
I
hasn't
get it.
figured it out yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Let
And you're
me.
not going to go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, for someone who is outside of this field, how many calls or how regularly do you have calls that are literally a life or death situation?
It depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when I was working downtown Chicago, it could literally be a 24-hour shift of back to back to back to back to
Wow.
back of those calls.
Okay.
And
Yep.
then we could
Chicago.
have a 24-hour shift like further out into the suburbs where we could go a week or two without seeing one.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's really pretty dependent on where you're at, and it's a lot to do with just where the dangerous places really are. I mean,
Mhm.
and if you
Or
happen
where,
to and something major happens,
Yes.
yeah, or just where people are they able to take care of themselves? Your
yeah,
socioeconomic.
some of the ghetto areas and stuff,
Yeah.
you see it a lot more often, and yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can they afford
Mm.
their medication, or can they not afford it? Are they
Mm.
compliant
Right.
with their medications and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing? So,
Yeah.
I mean, and that could happen in middle class too. They'd rather not
Yes.
take care of themselves like that. So,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it really depends on kind of where you're at, but and it's like rolling the dice too. You,
oh yeah.
Mhm.
it can be weird. It can
Sometimes
be
it's every shift,
yeah, it
and
can be like
sometimes, like she
bombarding
said,
you, or it could be nothing, or it could be just once in a while. It's there's
yeah.
no rhyme or reason.
Oh yeah.
So
Wow.
you mentioned that it can. There are certain times when things can get weird.
Oh
Um,
yes,
would
Full
you?
moon, new
3
Yeah,
moon.
I was going to ask
3
about that.
a.m.
The full moon.
Yep.
Definitely the full moon. Definitely 3 a.m. I will say that.
Yep.
Okay.
100.
The witching hour.
Yep.
It's a
Yes.
thing. It's a real thing.
It is a thing. And I mean, you really have to think about it. We're made up of mostly water.
Mhm.
What does the moon affect? Water.
Yeah.
Ah.
So when it's a
That-
full moon at 3 a.m., guess what?
Oh,
Things are
goodness
gonna happen.
gracious. Oh yeah.
The
Everybody's gonna call
witching hour
911
and a
once.
full moon. What do you do about the blood moon in October?
I haven't
Oh, that
noticed
was
it.
fun. I think I was off that night.
Wow. As a matter of
Good
fact,
call.
is that a sunset or a blood moon behind you, Beth?
Oh, I don't know. That's actually by a local artist that
Oh,
he does mashups, and I love his mashups. That's actually the Dolphins from what you call it, Hitchhiker's Guide, going into the
ah,
TARDIS.
Heck yeah.
it's goodbye and
I love
thanks
it.
for all the fish.
Yep, and we're going with the doctor on another adventure.
42.
But yeah, it could be a blood moon. It's kind of red.
42, the answer to the life, the universe, and
That's right.
everything. I've read the books. I've seen them. Actually, I got turned on to Hitchhikers back in college in 1982. The BBC radio production. Me and my roommate used to listen to it on NPR radio.
Oh my
And that
goodness.
was the greatest Marvin the Paranoid Android, better than the movie, better
Oh,
than anything else. The NPR production of Hitchhiker's Guide with Marvin the Paranoid Android, the best, bar none. And then the whale appearing in the atmosphere, having to come to terms with being a whale before it hit the ground, and had to come to terms with never not being a whale again at all. I mean, it was just
will it be my friend?
yeah. Oh, I mean, of course, it's an audio production. I'm sorry, another rabbit trail again, but the NPR product or the BBC production that was broadcast on NPR back in the early '80s is the best Hitchhikers, in my opinion.
I bet you can find it somewhere.
Oh,
I found the
I'm
TV series, so why not?
yeah.
That
Well,
is one of Elon Musk's favorite books, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's
I
one
was
of
I was
mine
happy to
too.
hear
the
that.
improbability drive.
Yeah.
Maybe Elon will come up with that next.
Oh, I'm sure he's working on it.
um,
We'll all turn into yarn
now, before we
and
get to
couches.
best, yeah, exactly. And to me, my favorite part was the sperm whale appearing in the atmosphere. And
With
then
a potted
they
plant.
land with the potted plant, and then they land on the planet. And they're like, where'd all this whale meat come from? So anyway, gosh, okay. All right.
That's the white
Before we get to, yeah, exactly. Before Alice following the rabbit down the hole. Before we get to Beth's next story, I want Lewis, if you'll read Reddit story number 1. I put a request on Reddit and said, if you've got a paranormal story, high strangeness, or whatever, can you share it with us? And I got a couple, and this first one's pretty good. So, Lewis, Reddit
Okay.
story number 1.
Let me see if I can find that. Oh, there it is. Okay. From Medic Jambi.
Right.
I've got one. Retired paramedic ran a full arrest on an elderly man in his late 70s. He was dead and, despite our efforts, remained dead. His wife and neighbor talked about what a good man he was, etc. My partner was out front with the wife and neighbor gathering information for the paperwork, and I was inside putting equipment away and gathering it up. While I'm doing this, I sense someone walk up behind me and sigh. I say it's really sad. He sounds like he was a good man and had a good life. The person behind me says, sure, he tried. I reply that I'm just sorry I wasn't able to do more. The person behind me then puts his hand on my shoulder and says, don't worry, you did well. At this point, I turn around to say thank you to the person speaking to me, and no one is there. Confused, I grab my equipment and head to the door where the wife and neighbor are standing with my partner. I ask about the neighbor that's inside, and the two women look at me strangely and say no one else has been inside. I was on the back end of a 48-hour shift, so I chalked it up to my brain being weird, but I'm not so sure anymore. This occurred in Southern California around 2002 in late October or early November in the evening, and it was dark out.
Well, I mean, he carried on a conversation with someone. Now, the way it sounds, either if it was the man that died, he was talking in third person, or he was talking to somebody else. But he put the hand on his shoulder and said, "You did well." Whoa. And then turns around and nobody's there.
Yeah, I definitely got a little bit creeped out, like hearing that story, because I could feel the, a lot of our job in the ambulance is acting. Actually, we have to act like we're under control so that the family and the people around us.
True.
And sometimes something like that happens, and you're just like, no, really, it's all good. And then you're inside, you're having a freaking heart attack and a stroke at the same time. You're going, what just happened?
WTF.
But you got to be like, it's all okay. It's okay, guys. I got this.
Yeah. Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I have people ask me all the time, why aren't you freaking out? Look, if I freak out, you better bend over and kiss it goodbye, because it's going down.
I've been in situations, I've been in like near death situations of my own self with other people where they're looking at me and they're like, and later on they're like, how were you so calm? It's like, practice.
Yeah.
So much practice.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh
And
yeah.
we do go freak out later. We just do it on our own time.
Yes. Yes.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
you
it's
say, I
time
have to
to.
go to the bathroom.
You know.
Oh gosh. Oh man. But yeah, that one came in response to a request. That was the very first comment I got on my request. And that was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Pretty intense. Beth, next story.
So we're going back to the Wade station where my coworker Tracy had an experience. She was laying on the couch in the middle of the night and heard footsteps walking down the hall. She looked down the hall and the footsteps stopped, but there was nothing there. So she turned the TV down and the footsteps continued. So it wasn't the TV, it was something else. After
Mm.
she looked again, still nothing there. So she switched directions on the couch so that she wasn't looking down the hall anymore and just covered her head up and said, okay, never mind. And she said the footsteps stopped and she felt a cool breeze or a cold breeze over her entire body.
Wow.
So we actually had people who didn't want to work at that station anymore.
Mm.
But I worked there every 3 days for 24 hours. So
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
great. But
So
I
it was the
like
footsteps again.
so I'm
We had
hoping the
one.
ghosts will
We
come
had
see me.
one.
Yeah.
We had one rig that everyone would fight to make sure they did not end up in that rig. And
Yeah.
it was the strangest thing. I don't recall what the story was. There was some detailed story behind it, and I never really got the whole story, but you couldn't it smelled like a horse so strongly from
Oh
this person
wow.
that had gotten killed on their horse with their horse.
Uh,
And you could not 24 or 48 hours in there, and you couldn't stand it anymore. I mean, the smell of horse was so strong. It
oh
was like it was
wow.
in your face.
Uh,
But we would
That's
fight over
crazy.
not getting that rig.
wow.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Dagny? Huh? Go ahead.
we've had several rigs that we swear were haunted. I can't remember any of the stories, but I have had a few patients looking around and looking up into like a corner and saying, "Hey, do you see that person up there?" I'm like, "No, that's all you." But I'm wondering, whenever they're hallucinating, if they're not actually seeing ghosts and such
Especially if it's several
paranormal
patients,
things.
several different patients
I
in the same
very
ambulance.
I have a very
Wow.
hard time believing they're not truly seeing something because of
Oh yeah,
some
oh
of the
yeah.
interactions. I watch it; it's so
Wow.
clear
Mm-hmm.
what's going on.
My.
Oh yeah.
Well, Dagny, your next story.
Well, I don't have another one written down for us, but I'll tell you another strange story that happened. I don't know what happened, but I don't question it. I just go, okay. Uh, we showed up at a scene. We had to go 11 stories up to get this guy, put him in a stair chair, bring him down the 11 stories.
Ooh, wow.
And the crazy thing is, we were talking about certain areas. That's a whole nother thing is if they have an elevator to their 18th story in Chicago or something, it's a lot less likely they're going to die by the time we get there as compared to having to go up all those stairs. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
even that
Uh,
comes into a factor. But so this guy did fine, but he was not fine when we first got there. But we get up there, he was overdosing on heroin, and we get him down to the rig and realize our rig is locked and we don't have the keys.
oops.
And oh yeah, my partner said it in such a calm way, but you know how it is. You got to play the I'm calm, freaking out, but I'm calm. So he goes,
Oh.
he just like walked away from me for a second because he went up to the back door to open it and went, uh-oh. And I'm there with the patient in the gurney. So he goes around the front and I just stood there for a minute going, uh-oh. And he comes through the back and opens the door. And I'm like, and he looks at me. He gave me this look like, whoa. And I gave him this look like, all right. And we didn't ask any questions. When we get to the hospital after we drop him off and stuff, and after we started freaking out about this, he had grabbed his own home keys instead of the rig keys when he got out. And we have to lock it when we get out because people will mess with it. So
Whoa.
that's how that had happened. But he just randomly was like in a panic at that moment when we were locked out and thought, what can I do? And he's like, I'll try my car key from my car. And it worked.
Holy cow.
It worked. And he was just like, we got the door open.
Wow.
The guy did survive.
Holy cow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was a weird thing.
That just don't happen nowadays. That just
No.
does not happen nowadays.
Yeah. You know,
30 years ago, maybe.
Back when
you had
I
a
was
pretty good chance.
Back when I was working, we didn't even have GPS or cell phones.
Yeah.
It was
I remember those
we had
days.
map books. We had the map books, and we'd be sitting there
Yep.
trying to read a map and drive, and while our partner is running a code in the back, and we're who's unsafe here?
Good times.
Oh boy.
GPS, coolest thing ever.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure. Oh wow.
The greatest
This
thing
is
since sliced
awesome.
bread.
I love your stories. They're fun. We've had some somber ones and some serious ones. We had some fun ones too. Here's another one on my Reddit request from A Fuller 0027. He said, I work in ER, though neither of the events happened in emergency. I work the night shift, and our main department is closed at night, and we run over to do quality control, ICU patients, and CC patients. I guess that's critical care. Well, it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I had finished quality control, and the whole department was locked. I have the only key other than my partner, who is in the ER. I was about to walk out when I heard the bathroom sink turn on. I went in, and water was running. I turned it off. No one else was around, and no places to hide had someone been there. Years before, I worked a night shift in a nursing home as a CNA. We had just finished rounds, and a couple of days before, one of our dementia payments had passed. Our dementia payment patients had passed. Payments, that's bad. I don't know that. That makes it sound really bad. There's one of my payments. That's one of my payments right there. She was known. She had just passed, and she was known for getting up and hanging with us on our breaks. This sweet lady always looked in the dining room cabinet for stuff to make us margaritas. Isn't that sweet? Well, we were chilling in the dining room when suddenly the heavy cabinet opened, then after a minute closed. On the table closest to the centerpiece moved around, then stopped. We got up, told her it was time to go, and went to the nurse's station. Nothing else happened other than a curtain sliding open in a guy's room on its own. He said, I know that security has caught a patient walking with an IV pole across a locked crossway. They got there within a minute thinking a confused patient had somehow got locked in, but no one was there. Other workers have told me that they have seen the IV pole patient, but I never have. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I gotta say, working in a nursing home and working in hospice, I saw a lot more of the paranormal type stuff than I saw in the ambulance, for sure.
Oh, imagine.
Well, I don't know. You say it in a hospital more than
no.
ambulance.
No,
in
like
the ambulance.
in a nursing home or with hospice patients, you tend to see more of the paranormal type stuff happening. In an ambulance, we only have a short increment of time. We're really with them.
There you go.
I don't know if that has to do with the connection or not, but I recall seeing a lot more happen in those other types of work.
Right.
Well, we're also really, really busy
And
in
focused,
the
yes.
ambulance.
True.
So we don't have a lot of downtime whenever we're actually in the back of the ambulance a
Yeah.
lot of the time, unless you're doing a transfer, then you
Yeah.
do. But yeah, I can definitely see that.
Well, I can see that. I mean, you're so focused on the
What you're doing.
patient. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I can see that would yeah, it would almost be like a peripheral thing,
Hmm.
you know, because I know you're trained to focus on the patient and ignore everything else. So it would almost be like that mosquito buzzing behind your ear, like something's
Yeah.
going on over here. And it would have to really be profound for you to get it. Um, I'm trying to remember where we're at in our notes. We got that one. We got that one. Okay. Here was another Reddit story I got in my request from Poppy Bear, 1998. Now, I made a call for EMTs, paramedics, first responders, police, whoever. And this guy, Poppy Bear, says a few years ago, I was a rookie police officer and I went to my first death call. Nothing out of the ordinary. An elderly woman passed away in her sleep. After going through the normal procedures of checking the body with my FTO, I guess that's his training officer,
Yes.
I was told to check the rest of her house to see if there was anything suspicious. The house was quite long, and I made my way to the end of a long hallway where I entered a guest bedroom. Once inside, I heard a woman's voice say, "Hello," clear as day. I thought maybe another officer or someone from the medical examiner's office arrived. As I began walking out of the guest bedroom, I again heard a woman's voice say, "I'm in here," or I'm here. Again, thinking it was an associate, I kept walking back down the hall. Then I passed another bedroom where, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadowy figure in the middle of the room. I did a double take, and there was nothing in the room. But what really gave me chills was when I realized that that particular door had been locked when I first checked it, and I was the only person inside the house at the time, as I found my training officer outside in our patrol car.
And
Okay.
another situation where you keep your calm,
Uh-huh.
but you're freaking out.
Yes, of course. Um, all right. Um, Beth, do you have another story?
I
Your
do.
your personal one?
Yeah. So not too long ago, um, I responded to a psych call, and it was a teenager who was basically having a meltdown.
Mm.
The sheriff's department was there and walked up to the house and went in, spoke to one of the family members before I went in, and I was standing there talking to the patient, and I had stepped into the room, and the deputies were standing at the door, and I was standing in front of a closet. Well, the light started flashing behind me. I turned and looked, thinking maybe one of the deputies was messing with the light or something. The patient was over sitting on the floor. So I just kind of turned around and looked, and the patient said, "Oh, don't worry about it. The house is haunted." I said, "I see that." And they're trying to make themselves known. Okay, well,
Wow.
hi there.
Wow.
And I just kind of looked at the deputies, and they're both looking at me like, "What?"
Okay.
So
Okay.
I should have asked them if it happened any before I got there, but I didn't. But whenever the transport truck arrived, um, the the EMT helped the patient out to the ambulance, and the medic and I were standing there talking, and we were actually outside on the front porch, and the light out there started flashing, which it did not do whenever I was walking through the house.
Wow.
And we both kind of turned and looked at it. I said, the house is haunted. I said, that's the ghost. She's like, all righty then. And then she walked back in to talk to the family. And I just kind of turned around and said, it's okay. We're going to take care of them. Don't worry about them. We got them.
Wow.
And it quit flashing. It flashed them maybe one or two more times and then stopped. I'm like, okay, that's pretty damn cool.
Wow.
I have
Go ahead.
I have to wonder after hearing that, are the EMTs considered, I guess, more spiritual because perhaps they encounter more paranormal activity than police officers or sheriff's deputies?
I don't know, maybe we're more open to it, I guess. I don't know. I have
Okay.
several EMS friends that are very into the paranormal, and
Mhm.
we like ghost hunt, or we talk about ghost hunting. Just none of us have ever gone to do it together, but we keep swearing that we're going to. But
So that's how
I
I
don't
got
know.
involved in paranormal in the first place. Is I had a dispatcher that was doing the haunted Chicago tours on his off time.
Cool.
And one time,
Wow.
he took me with, and he got such great photos. He's like, "Do you realize that you're like a magnet?" He's like, "I want you to come all the time," you know. So that's actually how I first
Wow.
got introduced to actually pursuing paranormal stuff, other than just going, "Oh yeah, that was weird."
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I've
was.
had paranormal stuff happen all through my life. Well, mostly I just remember my teenage and forward.
I
But
wonder, maybe, if you really pay attention, you'll see that there's a pretty common kind of personality that goes along with EMS workers.
Yeah.
there definitely is.
So maybe it's that sensitivity itself that draws us into the work.
Could be.
Could be.
Because
Could very well be.
there is a certain personality you find, for the most part. I mean, not
Yeah.
always, but for the most part.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you two are just strange. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think maybe we were born and we just worked. We were like, well, let's get paid for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's
Paid to be
awesome.
strange. I'm all for
There
that.
you go. I mean, I think you guys are awesome, but I mean, hell, I mean, you hooked up and became an ET, so that makes you even more awesome. Beth, in going over your stories, your student with the two accident stories.
Oh yeah. So one of my former students, she had a call for an MVC, which is a motor vehicle crash, and with a possible fatality of 1089, where they are. A lot of places have different codes for it.
Right.
But this particular MVC they had somebody who needed to be pronounced, and he was still in the driver's seat. They called med control and were given the time of death at 1900, 7 p.m. And while attempting to get an ID on the person, they noticed a tattoo on the patient's arm. It was a Grim Reaper holding a clock with the time 1900 on it.
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa.
Pretty
Oh.
She had another call where a guy was ejected off of a motorcycle laying in the road. And when he got there, they went over to package them, which is basically putting them on his backboard, putting a collar on them to hold, just basically to protect their spine. And they flew the patient to our level 1 trauma center University of South Alabama Medical
Mhm.
Center, now just University Hospital. But they went later to the hospital with a transfer, and a woman came up and to my student and said, "Hey, I remember you from the scene. That was my son in the wreck." She hugged her or him and thanked them for everything that they'd done, and they just kind of smiled and said, "Oh, it's my job," which is basically the standard. I'm just doing my
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
She said, "Yeah, but you didn't have to hold his hand the entire time and tell him it was not his time and he would live." And most of the time, we don't give any kind of false hope like that.
Right.
Um, but she said she did not do that
Oh,
or try to give any false hope, but he lived. So but they'll never know who or what was the one actually doing that to give him, but it gave him peace of mind, and that's what matters. So
was there a doppelganger?
I guess.
Well, see, that's one thing that bugs me on these TV shows. On just about every TV show, I don't care if it's EMT, a medic, a doctor, a cop, or whatever. You're gonna make it through this, and I know in real life you can't do that. You know.
Oh, I still hear some say that, and I'm like, mm-mm. I just tell them I'm going
Essentially,
to do
you
the best I
can't.
can.
It's just a very bad idea.
Yeah,
It's not a good
Yeah.
idea.
I mean, what do
yeah.
you do for the family if you say, "Oh, we're going to do everything we can to take care of. They're going to be fine. We're going to come out of this," and then they die 5 minutes later? They look at you and say, "What? What?"
And
It's all your fault.
it messes your own head up too. You
Oh
Yeah.
just don't do it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
Just tell them you're going to do everything you can, and that's all you can do.
Right.
So hopefully
I
it'll work
want
out for the best.
exactly. I mean that makes more sense to me. I want to end with Lewis telling story number 7. So as you
Okay.
get ready for that, I'm going to tell a couple of more before we close it out. Did you have any more, Beth?
No, I think that was all of them.
Okay. In this one story, this person says, "I worked at a facility in the Rocky Mountains that was originally built as a spa in the early 1900s. Teddy Roosevelt was a frequent visitor. Staff at that time lived on the premises, in the basement to be exact, because commuting was just impractical. One of the nurses was known to have committed suicide in the basement over a lost love." Now, how many times have we heard that story? "There were stories of sightings of her from time to time over the decades. A present night shift supervisor who was a fervent disbeliever in all things supernatural and paranormal would mock those who did, got the surprise of her life one night. Walking down one of the long hallways while doing rounds, she looked up and saw the nurse in uniform hanging from the ceiling.
Oh wow.
Everyone in the building heard the supervisor screaming. When she left her shift that morning, she quit and never returned."
Mhm.
That's funny.
That'll
Sorry,
teach you.
that's funny. I'll show you.
Yeah, right. Here you go. All right,
Wow.
one more. The one I want Lewis to read is kind of intense, so um, I want to tell this one little quick one real quick. A police officer says, "I think I saw a chupacabra. I was driving near a river in the American Southeast one night around midnight. All of a sudden, I hit the brakes because something ran in front of my car. I don't know what it was, but I can only describe it. Now, listen to this. It was standing on 2 legs. It did not have it did not have fur, but it had fangs and no lips. It had boy, visitor.
Sorry.
That has fur. That has fangs.
It's on
Yes.
4 legs.
Yes, and it's on 4 legs. That's right. So that's not a chupacabra. a chupacabra.
Oh,
All right, this thing, it didn't have any fur. It had fangs, but no lips. It had pointy ears and red eyes. It stood about 3 feet high and was running. It looked like it had a snout and it had claws. It looked kind of like how people describe a chupacabra, but who knows? All I know is that I don't know what it was. I wonder where. I mean, I wish he could have been more specific than the American Southeast. That's in our area. That's where we're
That's a
at.
big. That's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk.
yeah.
I mean, we used to tell on tour there was a guy in Mobile County, and again, I couldn't get any more specific than that. Had a picture of one he thought was a chupacabra. I wasn't sure. It was just a dead animal he had taken a picture of, but no fur. So who knows? I mean, but that doesn't, to me, I don't think I've ever heard a chupacabra described as running on 2 legs, but you know.
There are 2 different kinds of them.
Oh, educate me.
Oh, when I was trying to draw stickers of the different what are they called?
Chupacabra.
No, well,
The different species.
Cryptids.
Yeah, cryptids.
When I was trying to draw the different cryptids, I looked up chupacabra and got 2 completely different sets of information. There's one that's more northern and a different type, and one that's more southern and a different type, and they are so different from each other. And one of the one standing on 2 legs without the fur is the other one, not the dog one.
Well, I say that was a new one on me. I've never heard of a chupacabra walking on 2 legs.
That sounds more like the Puerto Rican one that he described, or the police officer described.
I mean, it all started in Puerto Rico, from what I understand. That what was it? I was watching one of those shows, and they were talking about the chupacabra starting in Puerto Rico, and it was the same time as some movie came out that had a similar creature, so they were kind of trying to debunk it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay. But I want to close with this story that I found. Oh, okay.
The scores are here.
So, but I want Lewis to read this last story for us. It's kind of intense. So, Lewis.
All right. Middle of nowhere in East Tennessee. Lady called the non-emergency line and said that there were people in the woods behind her home. She saw lights like people were walking around with flashlights. She owned this property and had no trespassing signs posted. I'm sitting around not doing anything, so I take the call and go to the residence. It takes me about 20 minutes to get there, knock on the door, and talk to the lady for a few minutes. She tells me there's someone on her property messing around. She keeps seeing lights and hearing people talking. I then went back into the woods where she saw the lights. I walk around for a while and don't see or hear anything. I came upon an old tent. I look around, then unzip the tent and look inside. Just some old cans of food and empty bottles. Doesn't look like anyone has been there in a long time. I zip the tent back up and stand up. I turn around around to walk back towards the house, and this black mass comes over me. Like someone threw a black sheet over my head. It was already pitch dark, being that it was after 11 p.m., but this was so much darker. I had my light on, but even it went dark. I tried to pull it off my head, but there's nothing on me. I'm freaking out, shining my light around, looking for someone or something. I see nothing. I am nearly having a panic attack at this point. I booked it back to the lady's home, but before I get to the front door, I stop, trying to calm myself down before I go talk to her. I finally somewhat calmed down, so I knock on the door. I told her I didn't see anyone, but there is a tent back there. She doesn't know who it belongs to or how it got there, and she asks me if I can go tear it down and bring it out of the woods for her. I decline.
Uh-uh.
I tell her if
Oh
she
no.
sees or hears
decline.
anything else to give us another call, and then I walk back to my truck. I sat there for a few minutes trying to figure out what the hell happened. I radio dispatch to show me clear on my last call, and I drive away. The lady called later that night with the same complaint. Luckily for me, another deputy took the call. I still don't know what happened that night, or if anything actually happened, or if I just imagined it. Wow.
I mean, can you imagine being there? It's dark already. You got your flashlight. You can see what's going on, and then all of a sudden, it's just like it dropped down over him, and even his flashlight can't. I mean, he didn't say it went out. Did you catch that? His
Mhm.
flashlight didn't go out. It went dark. Whatever darkness fell over him, it drowned out his flashlight.
Mm.
And can you imagine him, trying to whatever, he thinks something fell on him and he's trying to, that was, to me, that was intense,
Yes.
And then when she said, can you go to, oh, no, I got to get back. It's time. I've already spent too much time on this call. I got to go.
Yeah.
I like that. I declined.
Yeah.
I decline.
Declined.
Yeah, just so simple.
No, ma'am.
No, thank you.
Get somebody else to do
That's
it.
right.
The other deputy. Let him go
That's
take care of
right.
it.
Let him go. Wouldn't you like to know if the other deputy ran into anything? Wow. I mean, I can't imagine. Yeah, they talk about those deprivation rooms or deprivation chambers
Mhm.
where
wanna
they
try
cut off everything.
I do
That's
too. I want to try one.
well, they say, and there's where I was going with that was they even have those soundless rooms where they cut
Mhm.
off every. Now in a deprivation chamber, I think you can still hear, but in these rooms, they block off every single sound and all light, and they say that you can only last maybe 30 minutes in one of those.
Wow.
I challenge
that
that.
I
it's
can do it.
so silent that I mean, that's the point. They say people's like, nah, not a problem,
I'll accept that challenge.
yeah, but they say it becomes so silent that people
Your
just
brain
cannot.
starts to bother you.
Yeah, and
All you can hear is your heartbeat.
you hear
So.
your heartbeat and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, I could just imagine this guy, I mean, and trying to get his composure back before he goes to the woman, because he said he nearly had a panic attack, but I think he was having a panic attack
I know that
because he's
feeling.
trying to get whatever this is, he's trying to get it off of him, and he can't because there's nothing there.
Oh, yeah.
Whew, that was just intense to me. So,
That's awesome.
all right. Final thoughts, Dagny.
Final thoughts. Basically, a lot of weird things happen when someone dies around you, for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I can imagine.
Those are the times you really see some strange things happen.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. I can only imagine. I really do. Beth,
It's
final thoughts. I'm sorry.
it's
Go ahead.
almost an honor sometimes. I was there for Kevin's death, and I feel like it was an honor to be
Wow.
there and to go through that with him.
Yeah.
His had a story to it too.
Well, that's unique. You say it that way.
Yeah, it's like you're the one to be there with them and step them through this. It's an honor.
You remind me of Stephen King's sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep.
I don't even know about that.
Danny
Really good
Uh,
book.
God, my mind just went blank. I mean, that was The Shining. His gift developed into helping people move on,
Hmm.
and he felt like that was his portion of the gift, was to help people leave their bodies, and he. I don't know if he put it in those words, but it seemed like he felt it was an honor to do that. So that's why he always took jobs in nursing homes. As like, what was it, Beth? He was like a janitor or maintenance worker or something like that,
Yes.
because he
I
didn't
thought he
have
was
an
like
official.
maybe he
Did he?
was. I thought he was a like a CNA or something. God, it's been
May have
about
may
two or
have
three
been.
years since I.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I mean, but he wasn't a doctor or a nurse. He
Mm-mm.
wasn't anything in
No,
an
it
official
was a
capacity.
peripheral job. Yeah,
Right, where he could just
or an
basically move
orderly,
around. Yeah,
which they really
maybe,
don't have orderlies, but it was
yeah,
something like that.
where he could just basically move around on the edges, like you said, periphery.
Hmm.
That was a good word. Beth, final thoughts on tonight's show.
Um, lots of strange things happen. Like Dagny said, whenever people die or possibly going to die, and like I said, I think the hallucinations are sometimes probably not hallucinations for some people.
Mm, right, right.
So it's an
Lewis,
interesting job, that's for sure.
It's not
I can
boring.
tell.
No, and it's not for everyone
Sometimes you're
either.
begging for it to
True.
be boring.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, you really are.
Some days you're just not in the mood to be not bored.
Wow.
No,
But you're at work and you got to do it anyway.
yep,
Well, Lewis,
definitely.
final thoughts.
Well, I think anytime you're dealing with these life or death situations or these moments of extreme duress, that really you are, I guess you're opening yourself up in a way to all of this activity that can possibly come through.
Hmm.
That's a good point.
Definitely.
Well,
You-
like, go ahead.
It's like your like your idea of the thinner area
Yeah,
where you can see
Yeah.
another plane kind of. It's almost
right.
like you're stepping close to that thin area.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you're nudging up to the edge of it because you're assisting that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what were you pointing at, Beth?
I said poke, poke.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just don't tease it too much,
No,
so that it
no.
doesn't draw you in. Well,
Yeah.
I want to say, to kind of piggyback on what Lewis was saying, I used the word at the beginning to describe what you do, and that was intense. Um, Even if you're in, well, Dagny said it earlier, the high crime areas, you're going to have um, be busier, more life and death situations. If you're in a more rural area or suburb area, it's just going to be normal everyday transporting to a hospital or whatever.
Not
Not
always.
But
necessarily. Rural people get crazy.
I understand. I
the,
understand.
the percentage is more
Well,
common.
The
that's
call
what
volume's lower, but
yeah, that's what I
when they
meant.
go big, they go big.
But it's still intense.
Yeah.
It's still intense. I mean, the reason I say intense, even if uh, Granny fell and broke her hip, but other than that, she's fine. You're responsible for her livelihood from her home to the hospital.
Hmm.
That's intense, and
Hmm.
it's nothing that can be taken lightly. And I just want to say how I'm glad you guys are on our team, and I think yeah, I didn't mean that sarcastically. I mean
I know
truthfully.
what you meant. I knew what you meant. Actually,
I,
quite often people are tell me, "I'm happy that you're around because I feel a lot safer or whatever." And it's nice to know someone that's able to do these things and stuff. But a lot of times when someone says that, my first thought is, "Yeah, well, if something happens to me though."
Yeah, who's going to
Yep.
help you?
I'm screwed.
But well, I meant that, not that. Oh God, I'm fixing to have a heart attack, so Beth run over here. I didn't mean that.
It'll take me a minute.
I know that. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I'm closer than I used to be.
Oh, okay.
Sims is
That was
probably
yeah,
what
that's
20
happened
not
minutes.
when
far.
the two of us.
Yeah, 20 minutes closer than Sarah
Yeah.
Lynn was. So, but that's not what I meant. I mean it. To me, it takes, and Lewis has alluded to this. It to use a well-worn phrase, it takes a special calling. I mean, y'all have talked about it being this unique personality, and yes, that's all it is to it. I mean, that's all true. But it's a unique thing, and I mean, we've shared the Love Society in our group ETs before, and I mean, I do appreciate you guys, and because what you do is intense, it's amazing, and it's awesome, and all those other superlatives that I could throw in there, because not everybody can do this.
Yeah.
I don't think I could.
Almost like I was saying earlier. I mean, it's almost like you're born to do it or you're not.
Yeah.
Well, my birthday is 9/11, so
Ooh.
911.
There you go. Well, I
That's
will
the number.
close.
That'll do it.
I will close with a classic EMT story that you may have never heard, even though it's classic. To me, it's classic because I heard it about 30, 40 years ago. This man had just stripped down. This older guy had just stripped down and stepped into the shower and heard his wife screaming. He runs out butt naked, and his wife is in the living room standing up on the couch, and he's like, what and she says, I saw a snake crawl under the couch. And so he gets down on his hands and knees and looking up under the couch looking for a snake. About the same time, their pooch walks up from behind and he rubs his cold wet nose on his rear end. The guy freaks out, has a heart attack, faints right there. The wife calls 911. They rush over there to get the guy, and they're working on him and everything, and he's still butt naked. They finally get him up onto the gurney, and the wife is trying to explain what happened. And when she gets to the part about the cold nose on the butt, they start laughing so hard they tip the gurney. The guy falls off the gurney and breaks his arm.
Oh, good
Oh
grief.
But he
Lord.
gets to the hospital and makes a full recovery.
Yeah, I got a couple stories like that, but they're not okay for this show.
I'm sure. I'm sure y'all both have blue stories concerning EMT work. Well, watchers, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been a quirky show because it's been deep and serious at times, and it's been just idiotic, stupid, and fun at times. But I appreciate
That's
you
EMS
hanging
life.
with us. Yeah, we've been almost an hour. I forgot, almost an hour and 45 minutes. Wow.
Holy crap.
That you guys are
Rock
so much
on.
fun. Thank you. It's time to say goodbye. I don't know what our next show is. I have some ideas. We've got at least one outline started that we haven't finished yet that we've been talking about for a while. So, and again, with my schedule up in the air and everybody, you never know when you're going to see this. It's not like the 2-week rounds that we were doing before. So,
But it will be strange.
it will be strange. And what the way it's working here lately, I get with the ETs and say, okay, I can do this when who can do this night, and we work it out. But guys, be safe on your strange journeys. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.